Chapter 2. New neighbors at Netherfield. Mr. Bennet was among the first of those who visited Mr. Bingley. He had always intended to do so, though he continued to let his wife believe that he would not go. He finally made his invitations known in the following way. Watching his second daughter occupied in sewing and colored bent around the head, he suddenly addressed her with, "I hope Mr. Bingley will like it, Lizzie." "We're not in a position to know what Mr. Bingley likes," said her mother bitterly, "if we are not with him." "But you forget, mother," said Elizabeth, "that we shall meet him at the public balls, and that Mrs. Monk has promised to introduce him." "I do not believe Mrs. Long will do any such thing. She has two nieces of her own. She is a selfish, insincere woman, and I have no opinion of her." "Neither have I," said Mr. Bennet, "and I am glad to find that you do not depend on her serving you." Mrs. Bennet would not make any reply, but, unable to control any annoyance, began complaining to one of her daughters. "Don't keep coughing so, Kitty. Have a little pity on my own nerves." "Kitty lacks judgment in her coughs," said her father. "She chooses the wrong moment." "I do not cough for my own amusement," replied Kitty. "When is your next ball to be, Lizzie?" "In 2 weeks from tomorrow." "So it is," cried her mother, "and Mrs. Long doesn't come back until the day before, so it will be impossible for her to introduce him, because she will not know him herself." "Then, my dear, you may have the advantage of your friend, and introduce Mr. Bingley to her." "Impossible, Mr. Bennet, impossible, when I am not acquainted with him myself. Now, can you be so annoying?" "Well, if you will not perform this duty, I will do it myself." As the girls looked at their father, Mrs. Bennet said, "Nonsense, nonsense. I'm sick of Mr. Bingley. I'm sorry to hear that, but why did you not tell me so before? If I don't know it this morning, I certainly wouldn't have gone to see him. It is very unlucky, but as I have actually paid to visit, we cannot accept the acquaintance now." The astonishment of the ladies was just what he wished, that of Mrs. Bennet being perhaps beyond the rest, though when the first excitement was over, she began to say that it was what she had accepted all the time. "How good it was of you! I was sure you loved your girls so well to neglect such an acquaintance. Well, how pleased I am, and it is such a good joy, too, that you went this morning and never said a word about it until now." "And now, Kitty, you may cough as such as you choose," said Mr. Bennet, as he left the room, having had enough of his wife's work. "Then an excellent father you have, girls," she said, when the door was shut. I do. I don't know how you will ever repay him for his kindness. At our time of life, it is so pleasant, I can tell you, to be making your acquaintance every day. But for our dear daughters, we would do anything. Lida, my love, though you are the youngest, I dare say Mr. Bingley will dance with you at the next ball. Oh, said Lida confidently, I am not afraid, though I am the youngest, I am the tallest. The rest of the evening was spent discussing how soon Mr. Bingley would return Mrs. Bennet's visit, and decided when they should ask him to dinner. At all that Mrs. Bennet, together with her 5 daughters, could ask on the subject wasn't enough to draw from her husband a satisfactory description of Mr. Bingley. They were forced at last to accept the second-hand information of their lady Lucas. Her report was highly favorable. He was quite young, very good-looking, extremely agreed, and in addition to all this, he planned to be at the next London ball. Nothing could be more exciting. In few days, Mr. Bingley returned Mrs. Bennet's visit and sat for about 10 minutes with him in the library. He had hoped to see the young ladies, although beauty he had heard a great deal, but he saw only the father. The ladies were more fortunate. They had the advantage of observing from upstairs window, and he wore a blue coat and rode a black purse. An invitation to dinner he sent soon after, and Mrs. Bennet had already planned the meal that was to show the quality of her housekeeping, when an answer arrived which changed everything. Mrs. Bingley found it necessary to be in London the following day, and was therefore unable to accept the honour of the invitation. Mrs. Bennet was both disappointed and worried. She began to fear that he might always be flying about from one place to another and never settle in Netherfield as he ought to be. Lady Lucas quietened her fears a little by spreading the word that he had gone to London only to collect a large party for the ball, and a report soon followed that Mr. Bingley would bring 12 ladies and 7 gentlemen with him. The girls were unhappy at the thought of such a large number of ladies, but were comforted to find when the party entered the ball room that it was in fact made up of only 5 altogether. Mr. Bingley, his 2 sisters, the husband of the old one, and another young man. Mr. Bingley was good-looking and gentlemanly. His sisters were fine women, dressed in the latest fashions. His sister's husband, Mr. Hurst, simply looked like the gentleman he was, but Mr. Darcy soon drew the attention of everyone by his fine, tall, noble face, and the report which was passed round the room within 5 minutes of his entrance, that he had an income for £10,000 a year. He was looked at with admiration for half the evening, until his manners caused a general disgust, which ended his popularity. Mr. Bingley had soon made himself acquainted with all the important people in the room, He danced presently that the ball close early, and talked of giving one himself at another fit. What a difference between himself and his friend. Mr. Darcy danced only once with his aunts and once with Miss Bingley, refused to be introduced to any other lady, and spent the rest of the evening walking around the room. Mrs. Bennet's dislike of his behaviour was sharpened by his having made one of his daughters appear neglects. Elizabeth Bennet had been forced by the small number of gentlemen to visit out for two dances, and during part of that time Mr. Darcy had been standing near enough of her to hear against her will a conversation between him and Mrs. Bingley, who left the dancing for a few minutes to allow his friends to join it. Come, Darcy, he said, I hate to see you standing around by yourself like this. You really should be dancing. I certainly shall not. Boris, your sisters already have partners, and there is not another woman in the room with whom I would care to dance. I wouldn't like to be so difficult to please as you are, cried Bingley. I have never met with so many pleasant girls in my life. You are dancing with the only good-looking one, said Mrs. Darcy, looking at the oldest Miss Bennet. Oh, she is the most beautiful creature that I ever saw, but there is one of her sisters sitting down just behind her, who is very attractive and probably very agreeable. Do not ask my partner to introduce him. Which do you mean? Darcy turned round. He looked for a moment at Elizabeth until, catching her eye, he looked away and coldly said, "She is very pretty, but not good-looking enough." He looked over that, and Elizabeth reminded with no very friendly feelings towards him, but she told the story with great spirit among her friends because she had a playful nature and strong sense of humor. And the evening on the whole passed off pleasantly for all the family. Mrs. Bennet had seen her oldest daughter much admired by the Netherfield party. Mrs. Bennet had seen her oldest daughter much admired by the Netherfield party. Mr. Bingley had danced with her twice, and she had been an object of attention by her sisters. Jane was as much pleased by this as her mother, though in a quite a way Elizabeth stared at Jane's pleasure as she always did. Luda and Kitty had never been without partners, and Mary, the least pretty of the family, had heard herself praised Miss Bingley as a skilled musician. They returned, therefore, in good spirits to Longbourn, the village in Hertfordshire where they lived, and which they were the most important family. Within a short walk of Longbourn, there lived a family with whom the Bennets were especially friendly. Sir William Lucas had formerly been in a trade in the town of Merton, where he had made a fairly large fortune and rising to the honor of the title of friend. His honor had perhaps been felt so strongly, only it had given him a disguise for his business and for his home in a small market town, and even then worse, he had moved with his family to a house about a mile from Meryton, which he called Lucas Lodge. But though proud of his rank, he was friendly and ready to help anyone who needed it. Lady Lucas was a very good kind of woman, not too clever to be a valuable neighbor to Mrs. Benneton. They had several children, the oldest of them a sensible young woman of about 27. Was Elizabeth's special friend. It was a time-honored tradition for the Mrs. Lucas and Mrs. Bennet to meet and talk after a ball, and so the following morning brought the former to Longbourn of that purpose. You began the evening well, Charlotte, said Mrs. Bennet with focused politeness to Miss Lucas. You were Mr. Bingley's first choice. Yes, but he seems to like this second better. You mean Jane? I suppose because he danced away with her twice. Certainly he did seem as if he admired her. It does seem as if, but it may not lead to anything, you know. But Mr. Darcy is not worth listening as his friend is he, said Charlotte. Poor Eliza, to be only just very pretty. I hope you will not put it into Liza's head to be annoyed by his rude treatment. He is such an disagreeable man that it would be quite a misfortune to be liked by him. Mrs. Long told me last night that he sat next to her for half an hour without once opening his lips. Are you quite sure, madame? Is there not some mistake? Said Jane. I certainly saw Mr. Darcy speaking to her. Yes, because she finally asked him how he liked Netherfield and could not help answering her. But she said he seems very angry at being spoken to. Miss Bingley told me, said Jane, that he never speaks much except among people he knows well. Well, them is extremely agreeable. I do not believe a report of it, my dear. I do not mind. He's not talking to Mrs. Long, said Miss Lucas, but I wish he had danced with Eliza. Another time, Lizzie said her mother, I would not dance with him if I were you. His pride, said Miss Lucas, does not offend me to such as pride often does, because there is an excuse for it. One cannot be surprised that such a fine young man with family and fortune should think highly of himself. That is very true, replied Eliza, and I could easily forgive his pride if he had not wounded me.